Okay, so today we're going to break down this really powerful story about communication. It's all about how a single choice, the choice to just stay quiet, can completely change everything in a relationship, especially during a conflict. And this opening line, wow, it just perfectly sets a scene that, let's be honest, so many of us have been in, right? It's not always the shouting matches that do the real damage. Sometimes it's those quiet, super tense moments, the ones just loaded with unspoken history. That's exactly where the story begins. All right, so here's the scene. It's late, 11:47 p.m. They're in a quiet kitchen, and the whole thing gets started with just one single, very calm sentence from the wife. "You didn't even ask how my day was." It's quiet, but man, it lands heavier than any shout ever could. And what happens next? Well, right on cue, the husband feels that all too familiar physical reaction. You know the one. It's that tightening in your chest, that rush of heat. It's a biological thing, that shot of adrenaline when we feel like we're being attacked. Our bodies are literally preparing for a fight before our brains can even catch up. And here it is, the classic textbook communication breakdown. See, her statement wasn't just a fact, it was an emotional bid. She was reaching out for connection. But he just hears an accusation, so he responds with a logical defense. It's like they're speaking two completely different languages. So let's dive into what's actually going on inside his head and really look at this idea of defensiveness as armor, because that's what it is, right? It's this protective shield he's throwing up. But the crazy thing is, it's protecting him from the one thing he actually needs, which is connection. The second he feels attacked, boom, a courtroom just materializes in his mind. Suddenly, he's not having a conversation with his wife anymore. He's on trial. He's the defendant, and his only goal is to prove he's innocent, to prove he's not failing. And you can just imagine him scrambling to gather his evidence, right? Exhibit A, I provide for this family. Exhibit B, I really do try. Exhibit C, hey, I'm exhausted too. He's so busy building this case for himself, stacking up all the reasons why he's not the bad guy, that he's completely missing what she's actually saying. He's in the middle of building this ironclad case. But then, something shifts. Just one single thought cuts through all that mental noise. It's a question that completely changes the direction he's heading. He realizes, wait a minute, this isn't about winning anymore. And this is the pivot point. The whole story hinges on this moment. He's literally about to speak, his mouth is open, ready to launch his defense, and he doesn't. He closes his mouth. He makes a conscious choice to do something totally different, to step off that worn-out path of arguing and try something new. Silence. Now, it's super important to understand that not all silence is created equal, right? You've got that weaponized silence, the cold shoulder, the silent treatment that's meant to punish. But then you have this intentional silence, and that's an active choice to just create space, to let the other person actually be heard. And then he actually says it out loud. Think about how vulnerable this is. He's basically laying down all his weapons, taking off that armor, and showing her that he's completely shifting gears. He's going from defending himself to inviting her in. And because he made that shift, because he chose curiosity over defense, the real reason for the fight can finally come out. See, the argument was never actually about him not asking about her day. That was just the tip of the iceberg. The real problem was way, way deeper. And there it is. That's the truth. That's what this was all about. Because he created that space, she finally felt safe enough to share the raw, vulnerable feeling that was hiding underneath all that frustration. So, when you boil it all down, what was the fight really about? It was about invisibility. It's this deep, painful feeling that you're going through life with someone, but they don't really see you. His long day at work wasn't the problem. Her feeling of being completely invisible was. And this is the huge lesson he learns in that moment. His intentions were good, sure. He works incredibly hard for their family. But his good intentions didn't change the painful impact of his actions. And that's what he finally gets. And look at his response. It's amazing. He doesn't say, "I'm sorry," or try to explain himself again. He just offers pure validation. Just two simple sentences. "I didn't know you felt that way," which admits he was missing something, and then, "But I believe you," which just validates her entire reality. This is the key that unlocks everything. And this next part, man, it's a bit of a gut punch because it's so true for so many of us. Every time we rush to defend ourselves, we're sending a subconscious message. We're saying, my need to feel okay right now is more important than your pain. We're choosing our own comfort over theirs. So when you look at it this way, you realize they weren't actually enemies fighting each other. They were just two people, both really, really scared. He was terrified that if he stopped defending himself, he'd be seen as the bad guy. And she was terrified that if he kept defending himself, she would just disappear. Which brings us to the absolute core lesson of this whole story. In pretty much any conflict, we face a fundamental choice. Am I trying to protect me as an individual, or am I trying to protect us, the relationship? And his wife, she just sums it up perfectly. By choosing silence over his own defense, he communicated something huge without saying a word. He basically said, you are more important than my need to be right. Us is more important than my pride. So, you see, he learned that night that intentional silence isn't empty. It's not a lack of something. It's actually full of these incredible virtues. It's the restraint to not just react. It's the humility to admit you might not have the full picture. And ultimately, it's an act of love that says, your world matters to me. So at the end of the day, it really all boils down to this. Defensiveness is all about I. It's asking, how do I protect myself? But empathy is all about we. It asks, how do I protect us? And that simple shift in the question changes everything. You know, in the end, saving their connection wasn't about finding the perfect thing to say. It wasn't about a grand apology or a brilliant explanation. It came from the brave and honestly uncomfortable act of just being quiet and really truly listening. The silence is what saved them. So I'll leave you with this question. The next time you find yourself in that moment, that flash of anger or defensiveness, just pause for a second and ask yourself, what am I really trying to protect here? Am I protecting myself or am I protecting us? The answer to that question might just change everything.